Kyle Whittingham, the new head coach in Michigan. I swear to you, it does not matter if you're 10 years old or 110 years old. If you just keep following this sport and you keep on writing down things in your journal that you think you'd never see, fast forward 3 years, some of the things you wrote in the journal, you will be seeing. And one of them that I would have written 3 years ago is I'm not quite sure I'm ever going to see Kyle Whittingham as the head coach at Michigan. And yet here we are. So I didn't put out the water gift because I did not see this coming. I know that Kyle Whittingham's name had surfaced. I'm talking about like a week or 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't have put the Kyle Whittingham name in the coaching search. All right, so first thing, I wrote some things down on the iJosh here. First thing that I would like to know is for the people who are outraged, first thing we got to establish, I didn't grow up a Michigan fan. I didn't go to Michigan. I'm not a Michigan donor. So I do not have the emotional vested interest in this program, in this university that you guys do. Those of you who do, you got full right to feel however you want to feel. As an outsider, for the people who are just absolutely mad, irate, just flat out pissed, which is a verb, about this hire, why are you that way? What I always like to do with any kind of coaching search when it concludes is I want to say, well, first I say, show me the roster and show me the staff, because that's ultimately how you grade a hire. But we haven't gotten there yet. So as far as Kyle Whittingham, show me where you were, show me where you are now. Question, did you upgrade? The simple answer is yes. Michigan has upgraded from the time Sharon Moore was the head coach there a couple of months ago to today. Sharon Moore's out and your head coach is Kyle Whittingham. That's an upgrade. Now, it may not be the monumental upgrade that some of you hoped, but it's still an upgrade. You cannot be irate when you upgrade your situation. I still think Kyle Whittingham, until someone convinces me otherwise, seems like a bridge coach to me. Doesn't seem like the long-term solution to any kind of problem you have up there. But there are two ways to look at this because I could be wrong about that. Kyle Whittingham is in his mid 60s right now. He could coach another 10 years. That certainly qualifies as a long-term solution. I don't know how to feel about that. I'm sure Kyle Whittingham would if Michigan allowed him, but I don't know how to feel about that. So let's just say there are two ways to think about this. The first way is that this is a long-term solution. Let's call it a midterm solution. So the next 5 years. That's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is it's nothing more than a bridge candidate 2.0. I told you I thought Sharon was a bridge head coach. I never thought that the long-term prospectus up there included Sharon Moore as the head coach. You ask multiple people, sort of influential people around the program, hey, look down the road 5 years. Who's your head coach? None of them really ever said Sharon. And that was before any of this popped up. They just kind of thought, well, Sharon was put in place when we were kind of still in the NCAA sanctions cloud looming over the program. And now we're out of that. And now, we're full speed ahead. Sharon's probably not the guy. All right. Well, you may say the same thing about Kyle Whittingham because of the way this search went. You got Kalen DeBoer's name. Kalen was not coming to Michigan. We'll never be able to prove that because the calendar, the schedule didn't work out the way people thought it needed to work out to hire him. I'm telling you, he wasn't coming either way. Feel pretty good about that. But then when you got past that name, the other names, we would call those hot boards, right? You see them all over the place. Everyone has their dream wish list of candidates. Where was Kyle Whittingham on your board? Kyle Whittingham was probably either not on your board or he was a long way down your board. That doesn't matter. My board, your board, anyone's board, that doesn't matter. It matters how he works out. I know that sounds very commonsensical, but I mean, if you track this stuff long enough with just your program, but especially if you just look around college football, write down on the day coaches are hired how you think they'll do, and then check back in 5 years. For instance, I thought Brian Kelly would kill it at LSU. He did not. He did not. Now, in fairness, I think Brian Kelly was kind of checked out at LSU relative to what I had at Notre Dame, but that's excuse making. So, bottom line, he didn't work out. There are other coaches who have been hired in recent history that have done a great job that not many people threw a parade for on the day they were hired. Mike Elko is still really early in his journey at Texas A&M, but the early returns on Elko, I think, have been way more positive than a lot of people yelled and screamed or didn't when he got hired that day. So with Kyle Whittingham, that doesn't really matter. Now, the obvious elephant in the room is he's 66 years old, not 46. So if you were hiring a no-name guy that's still on the front side, the front range of his career, yeah, that's one thing, but you don't want to be rolling the dice on a guy on the back end of his career. How big a dice roll is it? Hey, do me one favor right here. Look down. Are you subscribed to the channel? If you are, thank you. If you're not, please click subscribe. It helps us keep the show free and free of corporate interference. All right, that's it for me. Back to the clip. Because you'll hear a lot of folks, a lot of football-minded people. Urban, who I know his opinion doesn't really matter that much in Ann Arbor, but I saw some people tossing around a quote from him a while back saying Kyle Whittingham's the best head coach in college football, which is going to be a very, very interesting dynamic now because the best coach in college football, according to Urban, is residing at the University of Michigan. So that ought to be fun to hear him talk about. But just consider what we have here for a second. All right. Go back to the golden rules. You got to show me the roster, you got to show me the staff. So I'm not going to give a grade. I'm not saying a grand slam hire, home run hire, or anything. You're hiring a really good football coach at Michigan. I don't know for how long. Again, to circle back around, so let me bookmark the point I was about to make. To circle back around one more time, it could just be that he's nothing more than a bridge candidate. It could be, you could easily sell me on this, that the powers that be looked around and said, we didn't get our A candidate or our B candidate. Everyone past that, we're going to have to reconvene on. And if we get all the way down to guys like Whittingham, let's just consider him a 1 or 2 year solution. And we can regroup. We can get president and AD figured out. We can get this investigation internally figured out. And then maybe 8 months from now, or maybe 18 months from now, or maybe 24 months from now, we'll be in a better position to go hire a long-term head coach. That could absolutely be their thinking, which was the Sharon situation. Even then, you upgraded. If you're still in a bridge candidate period, but the coach you have now is better than the one you had yesterday, you did upgrade. So at least there's that. But with the whole hot board stuff, all right, think about the situation Kyle Whittingham just left. Kyle Whittingham was kind of forced out at Utah. From a pure power ratings perspective, all things equal. So don't include the resource disparity between Utah and Texas Tech. Just think about football coaches in the Big 12. He's probably number one. He's probably number one out there. And he got forced out due to extenuating circumstances that aren't really relevant to Michigan. And he went from a place where they were at a big time deficit. Texas Tech did a number on the Big 12. So Utah goes from being, and Kyle Whittingham goes from being at a big time deficit, a disadvantaged position, to right now he's going to Michigan. Michigan's not going to take a back seat to anyone from a resource and NIL perspective. So he upgraded drastically. And I think that goes without saying. But what I'm trying to say is if you thought he wasn't going to get the job done at Utah anymore, if you thought, it looked bad that a team went in there and ran circles around them, Texas Tech beat them soundly in their home building. Well, what kind of resources was Texas Tech working with? What kind of roster were they able to secure and take in there? A roster that put Utah at a disadvantage. Who in their right mind is about to try and convince me that that's going to happen at Michigan? So again, when I say show me the roster, show me the staff, it should be very, very on par with the other teams around the Big Ten. And if you give me that, if you tell me that you can do that, and that's up to Michigan, that's up to Michigan to basically fulfill their end of the bargain. Because no one thinks that Kyle Whittingham's going to come in and single-handedly save anything or single-handedly do anything. So not that they're not already doing this, but like that's kind of the challenge to Michigan is make sure you fulfill your end of the deal so you guys can compete at the highest level financially. If all that happens, all we have is a better football coach than we did the other day. So that's where my mind goes. He's not going to take a back seat. Michigan's not going to take a back seat in the Big Ten. That's not a guarantee you'll win. That's never a guarantee you'll win. It's a guarantee that you'll put yourself in position to win. Those are two different things, and I readily admit that. I just have a hard time picturing this world where you've got all the money you need, you've got access to all the players you need. Maybe you even get the players, and then Kyle Whittingham doesn't know what to do with it. That guy's cooked for a long time. If coaches were chefs, he's been one of the most reliable, durable, dependable chefs in the game for a long time. I highly doubt he walks into a kitchen stocked with better ingredients than he had and a better purse with which to go shop for groceries with, and all of a sudden forgets how to cook. I doubt that happens. However, one of the things this is not going to matter over the next 5 minutes, but over the next 5 years, it will matter. One of the benefits of this coaching search, even if it ended the way you didn't want it to with Kyle Whittingham being the head coach there, is it shook the Michigan tree because we have not had a real old-fashioned traditional coaching search at Michigan in quite a while. I'd call it a generation. You've promoted from within, and that was on the back end of Harbaugh, and Harbaugh was hired over 10 years ago, and so you haven't had a coaching search in a while. The reason it's important to have one is because it shakes the tree. It shakes the Michigan tree, and you find out which branches are solid, which ones are dead. Whose opinion can you value, and whose can you not value? Which lips are sealed, and which lips are really, really loose and running their mouth all over the place. You got to find a lot of that out. You got to do a healthy inventory of your process. You got to find out how discombobulated it is over here, or maybe how airtight it is over there. This stuff's important. If I had to guess, it's important because you may have another coaching search in the not too distant future, and that one needs to be a well oiled machine. This one was not. I don't think anyone in Michigan circles would argue with that. Now, it's not shocking that it wasn't because it's been a long time since they had one, and they didn't really plan on having to have this one. There's a big difference in there was some smoke around Sharon versus they knew they were going to have to operate a head coaching search. And then it got dropped in their lap at the 11th hour, and they didn't really handle it very well. So I just wonder, as we get towards the portal season and we try and find out what the Michigan roster is going to look like, how do they do retention wise? How quickly does he put his staff together? I would think fairly quickly. And I don't think he's going to have a poor staff put together up there. And I didn't see what they're paying him yet. I cannot imagine that it's, right there in line with the other top dollar head coaches in the Big Ten. So from a salary pool standpoint, they'll probably be able to have a pretty good staff up there. Kyle Whittingham's a guy that I would guess others will want to work for, and you're working for him at Michigan, and you're working for him in a situation where, you can have your healthy slice of the pie. Like what I mean by that is if you go work for some guys, they garner all the attention, they get all the praise, and you're kind of doing real work in the background, but you don't get credit for it. You'll get credit for it at Michigan. So I'm not sure you need to be thinking that way. But the way I think about this, if I'm a Michigan fan or I'm just an outside observer, is it is not a dream scenario. Given the circumstances, I'm not sure that was possible. I know bigger names were thrown around. I'm telling you as plainly as I can. I don't think those were options. Kenny Dillingham was an option, but at its best, that was a 50-50 proposition. And you see which way that went. I don't think Kalen was a serious option. And I maintained that the entire time. And I mean, I don't know what else to tell you about that. I feel really good about saying that. So, past those two names, where was the slam dunk? Where was the grand slam? I know a lot of people got their hopes up with Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom's a really good coach. I wouldn't have called it a grand slam. I'm not going to call Kyle Whittingham a grand slam. I will say that I think it's an upgrade over the situation that you had there 2 months ago. And so at least we upgraded and we're not locking ourselves in. I highly doubt Michigan's chaining themselves financially to Kyle Whittingham. So let's just see what the staff looks like. Let's see what the roster looks like. Let's see what the portal season brings. All right, I'm down in Gainesville. They got up in arms about John Summerall, because they went the G5 route again. Well, then Summerall comes in and immediately starts making staff and roster moves. And it's like, oh, maybe we like this guy. He hasn't coached a game there yet. He's still like 8 months away from coaching a game there. So I reserve the right to change my opinion because I haven't really even formed it yet. But this is a big post Christmas happening here. Kyle Whittingham, the head coach at Michigan.